This is Crossing Borders. Thank you for joining us. My name is Mike Ginn. I am your host. Of course, joining me is going to be the ever enigmatic, ever hard to pin down. I'm talking about Extremo Alex Soto. You might know him from being a UFC vet. He's also been in Bellator. He's been behind the scenes working with promotions like Brave. And of course, now you might know him on UFC Fight Pass as the color commentator for LUX Fight League. Alex, how are you, buddy?
Hey, I'm doing great. Mike. Thanks so much for inviting me, man. This is great. Crossing
Absolutely. We've been talking about doing this show for a little while. Alex might freeze up from time to time because he's down in Tijuana at the airport trying to get over to Mexico City and do everything. Alex,
fitting name, huh? Yeah, I'm still with you.
All right, cool. Your video froze up for a second, but don't worry, I covered for you.
Thanks, man.
But like I said, Alex is in Tijuana, Mexico. He's at the airport. He's on his way to the LUX event this weekend. So we're catching up. We're doing this first episode of Crossing Borders. Hope you guys enjoy it. We're going to kind of keep tweaking it, trying to make it better and better every week. You'll see a little Spanish. You'll see a little English. We'll try to mix it up for everybody. But we're going to be talking about Mexican combat sports, especially Mexican MMA. It's kind of a market we thought that we really weren't covering on some of our other shows like Art of MMA and Cage My Q and other stuff on Fighters First. So hope you enjoy the show. We're going to jump right into it. Alex, you're on your way to LUX 16. You got a big event there. Of course, some stuff happened last weekend in the combat sports world as far as the Latin combat sports world. Combate Global had a big event. They had Perez and Roa. They did their lightweight title as well. Christian Perez took care of DeMar Roa for that one. But we're going to go ahead and talk about a few things coming up as well. As far as Mexican boxing goes, Round Zero has their fight night coming up in Nuevo Leon, Mexico. So make sure people check that out. They're looking for boxing. And then you're heading this weekend to LUX 16, talking about lightweight titles on the line. The main event, Cossio Dominguez versus Alan Dominguez, lightweight title on the line. Talk to me a little bit about that event and what you expect out of everything and what everybody at home needs to look forward to.
Yeah, first of all, it's Cossio. Draco Cossio. He's one of the most feared lightweights in the division and in probably Latin America, man. It's crazy. This kid is so fantastic to watch. It's like every fight this guy's been into, it's been a battle, man. Like a Mexican brawl farm fight, man. It's crazy, man. It's a great fight. But every fight that he's been like that, it's always the same. Kind of starts out slow, and then he just explodes into this like vicious freaking fight, man. It's just so much fun. So much fun to watch this kid. But he's going to be facing off against Alan Dominguez, and he's an up-and-coming guy. Honestly, I'm a little bit surprised that the matchmaker actually set this guy up, but he's impressed. I mean, he's one of those kids that you see coming up and basically has fought in the promotion 5 or 6 times and has like some fantastic knockouts. And it was enough to get the judges or to get the matchmaker's attention to get him going, man. So I'm looking forward to it. It's a huge test for Alan Dominguez, but man, I'm looking forward to this fight. That's just the main event.
He had a real impressive performance against Javier Rodriguez, so I'm sure that kind of played a lot into setting up. But he's only 5-3 right now, so he doesn't have a lot of experience going against a more experienced fighter in Cossio. What do you expect out of this matchup? Do you think he has a chance? Do you think he has enough experience to match up with a more experienced fighter like Cossio?
Dude, honestly, his last knockout victory that Alan Dominguez showed, he showed some really good poise and was like just very relaxed inside the cage, which is what you're gonna need when you're facing somebody like Sergio Cossio. But don't let that record kind of be the dictator there, Mike, because essentially, a lot of the fights down in Mexico City, especially Alan Dominguez realm, a lot of those fights aren't counted. They're not official. They don't get put on Sherdog or Tapology, and so you won't really necessarily see that. So you can tell just by looking at his previous fights, he's got a lot of experience and he's got a lot of talent to back it up.
So who do you have winning this one?
With that being said, I don't see this fight ending in a decision. I think this is going to be a knockout, I think, in my opinion, with Sergio Cossio being the victor.
So Sergio Cossio probably winning by knockout in that title fight. But you definitely expect fireworks, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, man. Alan Dominguez is a stand-up fighter. So is Sergio Draco Cossio. And I'm not dogging here on Alan, man. I mean, Dominguez he's got what it takes, man, to beat him. He's got the right tools. He's really aggressive too. He's really comfortable in the stand-up, and and one of the things that Cossio does is he's always starts off slow, man. So he always gets rocked in the beginning of the first round. So this could be an upset, man. It could be an upset win here from Alan Dominguez too. So don't count him off. But absolutely, this is going to be a crazy fight, man. A fun fight to watch.
Well, from all intents and purposes, it definitely would be an upset. You're talking about arguably one of the top-ranked lightweights, not just in Mexico, but outside of the UFC. So somebody who's probably been knocking at that door for a little while. So it'd be interesting to see if he wins this, what's next for him. But over in the co-main event, you got Alejandro Martinez going against Gian Cortez. Break that one down for us a little bit.
So first of all, let me give some background on Alejandro Pato Martinez. He's some of you Latin American fans might recognize him. He fought in the Ultimate Fighter. He had a really nice fight there against Fabian Quintanar, and it was an amazing fight. But unfortunately, both fighters were injured in that fight, so Alejandro wasn't able to continue after that. And ever since then, he's gone on the international market. You know, he's fought in Dubai. I think he even fought in Bahrain a few times. But I mean, this kid is he fought against Otman Azaitar, and if you know, Otman is a beast in the UFC. He's got like a highlight reel knockouts in there. But Alejandro Martinez was doing fantastic against him, and it was a back and forth brawl, dragged out. You know, man, full on firefight inside that cage. And it wasn't until Otman Azaitar actually pulled in that front kick to the liver. It was beautifully timed, man. It was beautiful. It was the third round. Take a look at it in the, I'm sure you can find that video on YouTube. But it's a great matchup. And he's fighting against Cortez, who's from Peru. He's 4-3 officially.
He's one of my people.
Sure, yeah, you're Peruvian.
Well, my wife's people.
Oh, okay, your wife's people. Same thing, family, right? But anyways, okay, so you're looking at this kid. Okay, this is going to be, who's this Cortez kid? But if you look at Cortez, he actually fought one of the, arguably, what I think is going to be a future Hall of Famer, future superstar in the MMA world, which is Daniel Serhuber. You heard of this kid?
Yeah.
Okay, so Serhubo and Cortez fought, I think in 2019. And Cortez was putting on a clinic in the opening round, man. It was a really good performance by Cortez. And, he took a really tough fight against a really, really good opponent and did fantastic, man. He ended up getting caught
in the third round. Apart.
Yeah, in the third round, exactly. And it was kind of it was just back and forth, man. It really could have gone either way if you look at that fight. So I think this is going to be one of those. I think it's going to be an upset win on this one, man. I think Cortez could have enough to pull this off against Martinez.
It should be a fun fight. I mean, so far the main and co-main both fun fights. We're not going to spend too much time on the rest of the card, but what other fights are you kind of looking out for on that card that people need to pay attention to?
So one of the ones that are out there. Well, I mean, if you're a fan of LUX, one of the things that like to point out is that, I mean, these are probably some of the best athletes in Latin America. There's got fighters like Diego Lopez from Brazil. You have Daniel Serhuber, who we've seen there very often fight. Which now I see on the Contender Series. I think he's got a fight coming up with those guys. But stay tuned, man. There's a lot of really good fights, up and coming fighters like Cesar Vasquez. He's going to be taking on Juan Pablo. How we doing, Mike? You tracking?
Yeah, unfortunately, you broke up quite a bit on that last part.
Bummer. I was dropping bombs, man.
Yeah. Like I said, we're talking to Alex live in Tijuana. You'll see this a little bit later. I'll try to chop it up and clean it as much as possible. Hopefully the connection gets a little bit better. But we wanted to get this on his way to LUX. We didn't want to waste any more time, get this episode out to you. So Might be a little choppy here and there, but we're going to try to clean it up for you as much as possible and try to make Alex look good, as he likes to do.
Good luck.
Honestly, I just kind of wish he was wearing his cowboy hat for this episode.
Oh man.
But also, I know you mentioned a few of them. I'm really looking for the Zuniga Cabela fight. I think that's going to be pretty fun too. Also in the lightweight division. Well, so Cabela usually fights in bantamweight. Is this going to be? I know they're fighting at 145, but who really has the advantage in that one? When one coming up in weight and one going down in weight.
Oh man, it's hard to say. If some fighters actually go up in weight class and they do better. With they have to deal with a weight cut, the mental aspect of cutting so much weight. It can be really straining on the mental game. So it's hard to say who's really got the competitive advantage, especially with the light weight class. When you're looking at 135, 145 pounds, there's a big difference in bodies, especially depending who's going to be cutting the most weight, right? But really, they're both small guys, so I don't see there's going to be a huge competitive advantage here.
I mean, they're both experienced, so the weight cut shouldn't really play too much of a factor in that one.
Yeah. Alan Tigre Zuniga, and he's got a really awkward stance too, man. I don't know if you've seen him fight very much.
Yeah,
but
I've seen some highlights.
Yeah, he's just awkward, man. His hands are low, and he just moves, kind of switching stance back and forth. But he hits at all different angles, man. So he's really interesting to watch, and he's really durable. And we saw him actually fight against Draco Cossio earlier in LUX. I can't remember which LUX it was, but yeah, that was a back and forth brawl, man. It was fun to watch.
So all that action is going to be taking place tomorrow night. You'll see this episode later today, so it'll be same day. But that should be taking place tomorrow night, September 17th. It's going to be right in Mexico City. What arena are they holding that at?
At the Pepsi Center in Mexico City.
Okay, so
right in downtown.
Right downtown, yeah. So make sure if you're in Mexico City, go check that out. If you're at home, obviously you'll see Fight Pass has all that action. You'll see Alex doing his best, charming his way through all the fights. Breaking down all the action along with the rest of the crew. So that's LUX. That's taking place. But Alex, you wanted to take a look at some of the up and coming fighters and some of the stuff going on around Mexican MMA. A lot of people don't talk about Mexican MMA. I hope you can hear me. You kind of froze up on me again. But a lot of people don't talk about Mexican MMA. It's something that we wanted to showcase, something to give people a little bit different. Of course, we'll be talking about a little bit more of the whole Latin flair, but we really wanted to focus a little bit on south of the border. So tell me some other fighters that we need to really take a look at that are really making noise. Obviously, in the UFC right now, you have champions like Brandon Moreno that have come up. You have Alexa Grasso doing some things. Irene Adania's done some things. So before, it was always like a big deal of like somebody had Mexican heritage, right? Cain Velasquez famously, right? Was a Mexican American because of his parents and everything, but he was still American. Now you have real Mexican-born champions like Brandon Moreno, and like I said, some other UFC fighters I just mentioned that are kind of coming up. Who are some other ones that we really should be taking a look at that should really be getting the spotlight right now?
Oh man!
Obviously, we just talked about Cossio, but some other ones.
Well, Sergio, I think is one of the top-ranked unsigned UFC prospect. In my opinion, I think if he wins this fight, he goes to the UFC, and he does a fantastic job in the UFC. But there's few people that I've seen that just absolutely grab my attention. And there's two that I really enjoyed watching, and that is Diego Lopez, who recently fought in the Contender City. His eye was poked. He was losing that fight, man. It was weird, but I think what happened in that is that later to come to find out, he had an injured knee going into that fight. I think it just looked like an ACL tear. It was pretty rough, but I mean that it is what it is. But Daniel Serhuber is probably going to be the next star, man, the next superstar from Mexico. Very very similar to Yair Reyes. So very very similar style where they're just very high level taekwondo, really good jiu-jitsu, really good awareness of space while they're fighting inside the cage. So he's really really fun to watch because of that. Another guy that I'd like to mention is Francisco Patron. I don't know if you've heard of him. This kid's 8-0. He's been fighting for LUX, and he's been fighting, I think, for some other promotions locally as well. And this kid is poised, man. I'm telling you, this kid he's at all, like, he doesn't look intimidating at all. They call him the baby face. And but every time he steps in there, he's got the it factor, man. He's got something that I got my eye on. So keep an eye out for Francisco Patron as an upcoming fighter. He still has a lot to learn, but boom, he's very active. So another guy at 135 pounds is Irvin Amaya. This kid is he actually snapped his shin bone, man, in half in one of his fights.
Kind of like Anderson Silva, Chris Weidman type thing.
Yeah, just like it, man. Just disgusting. And it was
it
like
on a
his
check?
second fight. Yeah, it was on a check. Yeah, he went through a low leg kick. And then we didn't see him again. I haven't seen this guy fight for a little while. He came back from that fight, and he looked fantastic. You know, if you look at a fighter that goes through something like that and so young in their career, and they make a comeback like the way they did. So Irvin Amaya he's a phenomenal fighter. He's got a lot of talent. He's got a lot of confidence going into those fights. Still very young. He's one of those guys that I got my eyes on. So he's a bantamweight. He's 7-1, and that loss was due to the shin bone snapping in two in that fight. But man, he's got a really tough mental game, and that's what I'm always looking for in these guys.
What about people that have been kind of like coming up? So obviously Alejandro Flores, one of the top in the entire region. He just made his debut recently at PFL. He's made it to Pro Fighters League. Talk about him for a second, because he's widely regarded as one of the very top Mexican MMA fighters that's coming up.
Man, well, this is a kid that's got a lot of experience, man. Yeah, I mean, everybody's been talking about this kid. I think right now he's going to be fighting in, when is his next fight that he's got on him? He just got a split decision win and against Carl Deaton, the third.
Yeah, he fought on that last card for PFL in the playoffs, which kind of caught my eye. He's 30 years old. He's been around. He's a featherweight. He's been kind of like in between, right? Like he's always been on the cusp of making that UFC or Bellator or PFL jump. Now he got that jump. I know Ray Cefa was very high on him. So despite a split decision, I think we'll be seeing a lot more of him as well. He's gotten a number of wins. Naciones, Icon Fighting. He was also on the Contender Series. Unfortunately, got that loss on the Contender Series. So people might know him from there as well. He's been in Combate. He's fought a number of fights in Combate. Cabo Promotions. So he's been all around the Latin American market for quite a while. So he's finally getting his opportunity to kind of shine. Hopefully he keeps rising.
You know, what happens in these things is like there's some fights that you just have to win, man. You know, and I think that's just what's been going on, man. Is when that opportunity shows up, you know, and he just, you know, he loses via guillotine choke or, you know, something like that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a market that's still growing. We'll kind of transition here, but, you know, the history of Mexican MMA is still pretty brand new. Like, combat sports in general in Mexico has always been huge. Obviously, boxing, everywhere. You go back to Julio Cesar Chavez, even nowadays with Canelo Alvarez. You talk about professional wrestling, right? Huge luchadors and CMLL, AAA, all these promotions that existed for a number of years. They've done a lot of crossover in America, so a lot of American fans may know them now. And over the years, especially with promotions like AEW and before that WCW and stuff that brought in a lot of the international talent. But talk to me about the history of Mexican MMA, because who were some of obviously Brandon Moreno came up and we all know him now, but there was people before him. There's been people going for a while. Who are some of the as Alex tries to get his camera right, who are some of the pioneers of Mexican MMA?
I mean, and it's funny. People always talk about Mexican MMA as being in its infancy or being on the coming up. And to be honest, man, Mexico's always been in the game. We've always had, if we go back, if I get a little cheesy here, but we go back to the days when Tito Ortiz was running amok of the entire division at 205. So, you have Cain Velasquez, Dominic Cruz. He's comes from a Mexican background, but in terms of guys that have come back, Yair Rodriguez, for instance, like that kid came in 2014, 2015, I believe. I think is when he debuted in the UFC. Diego Sanchez, a lot of these guys, Nick and Nate Diaz. There's been a lot of pioneers from the Mexican background, not just in just the sport, but in any combat sport, really.
Yeah, but a lot of those are Mexican American. Like you don't see too many. When I personally, like, I can't speak for everybody, but when I personally say it's kind of in its infancy, I'm talking about authentic Mexican fighters. Like, we already talked earlier how Cain Velasquez got credit for being the first Mexican American champion, but not very many people like even realize that Brandon Moreno was the first one to actually Mexican born to be a UFC champion. Like, there's not too many Mexican born fighters.
Well, I'll give you like Efraín Escudero, for instance, was one of the pioneers. He won the Ultimate Fighter. He was born in Mexico, trained in Mexico, taught in Mexico, developed in Mexico. He was bordered. So a lot of the border cities, have done that transition of crossing over the border to the U.S., training in Mexico. I'll tell you right now, one of the best gyms in Mexico is Extremo Gym, right at the border city of Tijuana. And they got guys from all over the place. And I was just talking to Henry Briones, who's the matchmaker for Lux, and he was just telling me, like, man, I got like guys like from all over Latin America that are showing up, training in Tijuana. And there's a lot of cross training. There's a lot of guys that train from San Diego. They go down to Tijuana to go train with those guys. I mean, it's just iron sharpening iron down there right
now. Yeah, see, that's what I'm kind of getting at, because people like him, like, that's like what I consider kind of like the trailblazers of Mexico, because obviously the American fans, we're only going to know the names like the Diaz brothers, Velasquez, and some of these young kids that are coming up now. But like you mentioned, Mexico MMA has been around for quite a while. Mexican combat sports has been around forever. Like, I always think back when I think Mexican combat sports, I think everybody immediately thinks of Julio Cesar Chavez, right? Like, he is the face of,
the best ever.
Yeah, of Mexican combat sports. And obviously in boxing, hell, even he came back in one of those celebrity fights on the last Anderson Silva fight, not this one, but the one before that. And sorry about your boy Tito getting knocked out, but he came back on that one before, and he looked great. He's like in his 60s, late 50s.
Yeah,
he still looked like he had hand speed. He looked like he probably beat half the kids nowadays.
Yeah, it's impressive to watch, man.
Like you were saying, one of the greatest of all time. We do keep losing Alex a little bit. He is in the airport. He's on his way to Lux this weekend, trying to give us a little bit inside sneak peek before we get going. We wanted to get kind of inside the action and get this episode rolling out. But talk to me real quick. What does somebody like that really mean to not just Mexican boxing, but to all of combat sports, right? I'm sure a lot of the young athletes look up to somebody like him, right?
Yeah, absolutely, man. That guy's a freaking national hero, man. Cesar Chavez is, like, I mean, he was going 80-0, fighting some of the best in the world, man, and just held them fantastic. I think it was 95 before he ended up getting his first loss or something like that. He
went forever. I do remember a couple close calls, but this is a Mexican show, so I don't want to say anything bad. I want all the hate mail coming my way. So
let him come.
I will say, even like at that Legends event in Japan on the Anderson Silva card where he fought his son, man, Julio looked fantastic. Like, he could beat half the kids his age at this point. His hand speed was incredible. So, always legends like that. We were talking about more, and I'm just kind of recapping because we lost Alex for a little bit. Just the legends that have come through Mexican combat sports. We talked about the professional wrestling. We talked about boxing and MMA. Some of the guys, the pioneers and the girls. We talked about some of the up-and-comers you should keep an eye on. But Alex, it wouldn't be you if we didn't have a little Alex story time. Now I know you're enjoying. I see you doing some of the airport food, but you're not in Mexico really yet. You're in Tijuana, but you're at the airport. You're not really like in the streets right now. So I know you wanted to. I know when you get to Mexico City, you're going to enjoy some of that authentic Mexican hospitality. What are you looking forward to most when you get down there to eat?
Yeah, it's funny you said authentic Mexican food. My first time going to Mexico City, because I hadn't gone to Mexico City until my first Lux event, man. I got a funny story. I went out there, and so I walk into this because I know Tijuana tacos, man. There's nothing better than Tijuana tacos, man. So I walk into this place, and it's just literally a hole in the wall down there in Mexico City, right in the downtown area. And I was like, hey, let me get an authentic taco, man, in Spanish, of course. Let me get something, that's really from Mexico City. The guy looks at me and he's like, all right, I'll give you, okay, yeah, I'll give you something. I'm like, all right. So I'm like eagerly waiting, and so he's got, so he comes back with a couple of options, and one of the options was, he was like, hey, how would you like that? Some tacos, of blah, blah, blah. I wasn't really paying attention. I was like, yeah, sure. Give me whatever, man. I don't care. But as long as it's like from Mexico City, the guy's like, all right, no problem. So I start eating my taco, man. And it's actually really good, man. It tastes really good. I'm loving it. I'm digging into my taco. And then like a couple seconds into it, I feel like what looks like a hair. And I'm like, okay, there's a hair. It's a hole in the wall. Whatever, man. Whatever. It's like, all right, so there's a hair. So the FDA is not here to do anything about it, right? I'm like, all right, whatever. So I start chewing on another taco. I keep eating my taco, and out comes another hair, man. And I'm thinking, oh, dude, was I a total douchebag? Showed up and was like, hey, give me some fucking Mexican tacos. That's gonna be great. And
the first Latino he probably called Gringo. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, oh fuck. And then I was thinking, okay, so I've had hair in my food before, right? How many times has that happened in your life? Maybe I can think of maybe 2 occasions that's happened.
I've been a bartender forever, so I've seen a little of everything. But go ahead.
Right. So it doesn't happen very often. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm thinking, okay, so this is not a coincidence, man. Obviously, either this guy's a fucking asshole, or there's something really terribly wrong going on here. So I open up my taco, man, and there it is. It's a bunch of crickets in my taco, and so chapulín is called cricket, and I didn't really put that together, And I was like, oh, that's right, chapulín means cricket, and I just forgot, man. So, anyways, it was delicious. I ate the taco. I was super excited to eat it, and it was a fun time. So,
man, I'm all about trying new things, but I think I'll skip out on that one. You want to do al pastor, or you want to do like authentic Mexican? You want to do just the cilantro and chopped onions? Like, I'm all about all that. Like, first of all, I live in the hotbed of like a lot of Hispanic cuisine because I live in Tampa, Florida, where we have a mix of Mexican, Cuban, Puerto Rican. So I get like literally Dominican. I get literally a mix of like all the different flavors. My wife gets a little sad because we don't have a lot of Peruvian here. There's some, but not quite as much. More of that's down in Miami, or a lot of Peruvian, believe it or not, where I used to live in DC. Yeah. A huge Peruvian population. But here, a lot of Mexican, a lot of Cuban, a lot of Dominican and Puerto Rican food flavors. So I get a lot of that authentic flavors from a lot of that. I used to work as a little behind the scenes as a head bartender at an authentic style Mexican restaurant. It was called MXDC up in Washington, D.C., where we did a lot of stuff, Southern Mexican style. I've been down to Guadalajara. I've been down to Jalisco, more on tequila and mezcal trips. But yes. Obviously, while you're there, you're enjoying the food. So one thing, I've never had to really worry about the old, like a lot of the gringos say, the Montezuma's revenge. I've never had to like worry about that because I've always had that kind of, I guess, taste and flair for that cuisine. So always a good time. Like I love going to different countries and trying different food. So Definitely something. Real quick, before we get out of here, I'll let you wrap up, which is ironic because now the connection is like perfect now that we're finishing up the show.
Well, I'm
But
sure it's
real
gonna
quick,
happen.
yeah, before we get out, what do we need to look forward to this weekend, and what should we look out for?
I think Alejandro Pato Martinez against Cortez is going to be a freaking barn burner. Check it out. That's going to be the co-main event on Luke 16, UFC Fight Pass Friday night. If you got some chance, I think it's going to be a little bit earlier there in Miami. If you're listening out there in Miami, Florida. I think Cossio earns his spot, earns his really the call.
I think there's a 1 hour time difference. I don't think it's much.
That's not much. Okay, well, regardless, I think it's going to be fantastic for opportunity for Cossio to finally get signed in the UFC after this huge fight. So watch it. I think it's going to be an excellent performance by Cossio.
All right, there you have it. This has been Crossing Borders. We tried to keep it a little bit fun. I do apologize about some of the technical difficulties we had. Like I said, I wanted to get Alex in. We've been talking about doing this show for a little while. He was on his way to Luke's, and we just thought, hey, let's go ahead and just record this first episode now and get it out there. So as the episodes go on, as Alex is on better Wi-Fi, we will have better episodes. We'll mix up a little of the Spanish, a little of the English, a little of the Spanglish, and we'll have a lot of fun doing this show and bringing you something that really most people just aren't covering. You go on a YouTube search and you look up Mexican MMA, very few things come up. So we're hoping to kind of cross that border. That's why the show is called that, kind of a little tongue-in-cheek. We're going to have a lot of fun with it. So stay tuned. Make sure you tune into Luke 16 this weekend, right on UFC Fight Pass. It's not much to subscribe, so go ahead and check out all the action. You have that, obviously a lot of regional American action and UFC stuff and the entire UFC library. So go ahead and check that out. Go back and look at fighters like Brandon Moreno, Alexa Grasso, Renny Adanya that we mentioned who made their way up from Mexican MMA into the UFC and excelled. So check out all of that. Alex, any last words?
That's it, man. Thank you, guys. Thank you for listening.
All right. Well, I'm Mike Ginn. That's Extremo Alex Soto. This is Crossing Borders, and we'll see you next week.